Hello, hello. So I'm going to talk about the BoltOps reference architecture, and today we are going to deploy a fronting application to both the production VPC and the development VPC. In other videos, what we did was we set up all these three VPCs, we paired them together, and we did this all in one AWS account. And then we spun up some ECS spot instances as well as ECS basically auto scaling instances on both of these VPCs. Then we deployed a backend application. The final step is to actually deploy now a front-end application that actually talks to that backend application and then echoes back that response. So let's go down there and do this. Okay, the very bottom here, there's demo front-end application. Let's click on that. And here, the instructions basically say, this is an application for demonstration purposes. What it does is it calls the backend application. So it requires the backend application to be up and running. Okay, and then it echoes back whatever that backend application returns, which is the response 42. You can kind of see it being tested here on the install local instructions here. So the first part of the instructions is just installing everything locally and then starting up the server locally and then testing it locally. When you're testing locally, you're going to get something like this. Front end calling backend, response from backend 42. If you were to hit the backend application directly, you'll get 42, and we'll do that. Okay. Then after the kind of local instructions, it starts off by saying, let's create an ECR repository. Okay, the instructions for a single account is slightly vary from the multiple account strategy, and it's just links right here. Just look for one account and then create ECR. So we're going to be using those instructions. And it's also, I think, different right here when you adjust your settings file for UFO, and I'll explain that in a bit. But that's the only bit of difference in the instructions here. And so the rest of this is basically just getting our application onto AWS. Okay, so let's that's a good summary, I think. So let's go ahead and dive into it now. Let's grab all the clone commands here, or the install commands, and I'm just going to copy them over, and I'm cloning the repository down. I'm CD into it, and I'm doing bundle install. Okay. Then next, I'm going to start up the web server. So there's a bin web command here that starts up a web server. Okay, that starts at port 8081. So the front end app runs on port 8081. The backend app will run on let's run it down here. We'll run on 8080. So remember, we need to have the backend application also up and running. So it's the same bin web command, and that's now running on 8080. So we have both applications running. So now that we have them running locally, we can actually just curl this part right here, and then it should spit back out a response. So I'm just going to open yet another terminal. Okay, and I guess I'll stack all three of them like this. Okay, so this is front end, this is back end, and this is where I'm going to curl it. Okay, so curl, oops, there. So I'm curling the front end application, and it says front end calling back end response from back end 42. If I were to hit the back end application, it would just be 42. And you can notice down here too that kind of when I hit the front end application, both of them spit out logs, right? But when I hit the back end application, only the back end, only one of them will spit out logs, only the bottom right there. Okay, so that's just to get your bearings, all right, and understanding what the app does. So now that that's working, we're gonna go ahead and close this off and continue. All right, so everything's working locally. Let's get this now on AWS. And to do that, the first thing we do is we create ECR repositories. And there is a link to the one account strategy here. So we'll go on that, and it just basically summarizes the different commands. So with a multiple account strategy, you actually have to create two different ECR repositories on different AWS accounts because they're completely segregated. With a single account, you can just use one repository. You can also use, if you want to, two repositories, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to use one repository. Okay, so to do that, you just grab this command and run it. So it's just basically AWS ECR create repository and the repository name demo front end. So that created the repository. We're done there. We can go back now to the README. Now ECS deployment. So for ECS deployment, we're going to use this tool I wrote called UFO. So UFO does three things. Okay, it basically builds your Docker image up. It registers the ECS template definition to ECS, and then it deploys to ECS. Those are the three things you have to do whenever you're working with ECS, okay? And just automates that process, okay? And this front-end application has already been set up and pretty much pre-configured to work. All you have to do is adjust a couple settings, okay? So this is the thing you have to adjust, .ufo settings.yml. So let's open that up and let's start adjusting. And as part of adjusting, this is also specific to one AWS account strategy. So we actually want to adjust it per these instructions here, okay? Adjust ECR repositories. Okay, so we gotta do three things. Let's open up the settings first so you can see what that looks like. .ufo settings.yml. There it is, okay? And it says right here, let's go to the instructions. Adjust settings.yml to use image value for development and production. So because we're using the same ECR repo, we're going to use the same value for both production as well as, let me get this correct, as well as for production as well as development, okay? And what you can do is you could just add this here, and you can add it also here, so they're the same. But since base gets merged, the settings get merged to all the other environments, you can just add up there for just to reduce some redundancy there, okay? So it's going to use the same basically ECR repo, okay? That's the image. Okay, now next, it says adjust stack naming to append env. Okay, so because this is all on a single account, UFO actually uses CloudFormation to deploy the ECS service resource, and it is going to name the CloudFormation stack in a way where it can collide, unless you basically have append env. Append env is going to basically append the development or production word to the end of the stack name, so then those CloudFormation stacks won't collide. So that's what that's about. Okay, next one is AWS profile 1. Okay, so the default setting here is just for multiple accounts, and that it kind of assumes you have a settings with dev and PRD profiles, but here we just have the one profile which was set up in previous videos at the very beginning. Okay, so now that looks good. Okay, moving on, let's go back to the README. Okay, now we've adjusted the ECR repos. We adjust the network settings. Okay, so again, these are just pre-configured already, but we just need to go adjust them. So ECS, when UFO deploys the ECS service, it needs to know where to deploy it to, like what network to deploy it to, like what VPC and what subnet to deploy it to. So we need to go configure those because we're using two different VPCs here. We're using a development VPC and a production VPC. Let's go ahead and grab those values. To grab those values, just go to VPC development, look at outputs, and grab VPC right here. Okay, so I'm going to start off with development. There's the VPC right there, okay? So we're going to deploy the ECS service into that VPC. There's also ECS subnets and ELB subnets. So ECS subnets and ELB subnets, what those are ECS subnets is basically where the ECS service can deploy Docker containers to. We want to deploy the Docker containers to private app subnets right here. Let's kind of make this so it's more readable. Okay, private app subnets right there, okay? So that's where I would recommend deploying the ECS, to tell ECS to deploy the Docker containers to the private subnets, okay? For load balancers, because this is a front-end application, this is public-facing, we would want public subnets. So let's go look for the public subnets. Public subnets right there, okay? So right here. And just replace that. Then we're good for development. Now we got to do the same thing for production. So let's close that off. Let's go to production, and I'm grabbing the VPC. So it's just, again, different VPCs, but the tool is pretty flexible. It lets you kind of configure anything you need, including existing VPCs and stuff like that, right? Okay, private VPCs. Okay, private, not VPCs, private app subnets. So that's done. And lastly, the public subnets, okay? So let's grab those and paste those in here. We're good. So that looks good to me. All right, let's go back to the README. So we're done with network settings. Okay, we've adjusted both development and production YML. And now we adjust the ECS Environment Variable. Okay, so how does the front-end application know where the back-end application is? Like, how does it know what the endpoint is? Well, the application was written with environmental variables to do this, okay? So the environmental variable back-end endpoint basically should point to the back-end endpoint there. And for what it's worth, this is actually our configure. We just should open up and double check it in case, let's say, you use a different backend endpoint. But that's just in variables here, and it's in development and production. Okay, so let's put those on top of each other again. And you can see development, backend, private, dev, private, and usually demo, backend, web, dev, private. And down here, demo, backend, web, PRD, private. Okay, so those should work because that's what I did in the backend setup. Okay, but if you use different values, you need to adjust those, or else it's not going to talk to the right backend. Okay. Okay, so that's been done, pre-configured. We just have to kind of review them. Now we're ready to deploy. So we just configure some values, and now we can deploy. So I'm going to go ahead and kick off deploys for both applications there. Yeah, I'm going to actually not grab the no wait on the second command. on purpose. So cd back into the demo front-end application right there. Okay, and now deploy development, and then once that's done, that's gonna kick off the deploy for production. And so it's gonna take a little time to finish this deploy. So I'm going to pause the video so y'all don't have to wait. Okay, so the ECS, the stacks have finished deploying. So UFO ship is basically done. And that's the reason why I actually use the no wait option in the second command, so I can see when exactly when this was complete. You could also check on it in the AWS CloudFormation Console. So you see here, demo front-end web development and demo front-end web production. Those are both stacks created by UFO. You click on stacks up here, you can see it. UFO ECS stack right here, those are managed by UFO, okay? And it basically, let's look at events and let's see how long it took. Okay, so it started at 10:30 and it finished at 10:34, so about 4 minutes. Okay, then you can click on outputs to test this. It spits out it provides the ELB DNS endpoint of the public-facing load balancer. Okay, so you can kind of grab this, and because it's a public-facing load balancer, it's actually pretty easy to test this. And I'm just going through the test instructions right here. You could just go in here on any machine, pretty much, as long as you have internet access, and curl it, and that should kind of return the response. Then see, setting front end, calling back end. So that was the development one. Let's also look at the production one for good measure. Curl there. So that also returns all the way. Remember, the front end app is in the back end application. It's getting that 42 response, and it's spitting all the way back. It's echoing it back out. Okay. So that was pretty much it. Let's go back to the reference architecture and kind of just review what we've done here. Okay, so we basically have built the entire reference architecture here, and we deployed our application on a front-end demo back-end application, and now a demo front-end application on both production VPC as well as development VPC. And that was pretty much it. So hopefully you found that helpful. Cheers.